we start the meeting, go into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we're without Miss Benson today. She was not feeling well, so she was not into work, so we'll be doing this kind of shotgun. So have patience with me. First order of business would be minutes. We have minutes for August 26, 2013, which were scanned to the board members in email. I would accept a motion to accept the minutes.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of August 26, 2013.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we'll go right into committee reports while those are going down the line. Matthew, MJTC.
Still no meeting in August.
Okay. Joanna, MRPC. The chair was out, so the vice chair just did a quick recap of that. There's going to be a lot more in the September meeting because they're doing a lot of work with Leominster on the slot casino that they're looking to have going on 117. So they're going to have probably about a 5-page write-up on that I'd like to give to the board, because there's a lot of great information about what's going on with the casino. The Leominster vote is, I believe, September 24th. And someone had said that at a town, whether it was in the newspaper or the selectmen's meeting, that Ms. Bidell was looking at that as well. And I guess the impact of it for the town of Lunenburg. So, but they did give, it's only a slots machine. It's right off of, do you know where it's going? Walmart. Do you know where Walmart is on 117? You physically have to go into the Walmart, past Walmart, and it's down the end of that road is where they're, so it's right off of a 190. And across the street was a mobile station that now McDonald's is going there, and I had assumed that the truck stop that was there was gone, but that's not the case. They're making an even bigger truck stop with a bigger gas station behind that, so I think they're creating like a little road across the street from Walmart. There used to be the mobile that we used as the example for our scenic rule. That mobile's gone.
This is near the gambling?
Yes, right across the street.
Oh, wow.
On 117, right before Lowe's.
Gotcha.
So, but I will have that plan and I'll give you all a copy so you can read it, because there's a lot of great information about the casino and what the Cornish family's looking to do. All right, next we have Nathan, School Building Committee.
Okay, well, little update there. Maybe folks have seen some of this in the newspaper or in the reports from the Board of Selectmen. The last meeting we had, we discussed some of the, in addition to some normal business we have, we discussed a couple things. One is that when the Board of Selectmen had some questions recently about the proposed plan for the school, and in particular, how many students the plan that was being discussed with the MSBA would accommodate, and how the numbers were arrived at to determine the number of students, the allotment. So the Board of some members of the Board of Selectmen, I don't know that they attended a meeting with the MSBA and some of the leadership of the School Building Committee. And I don't believe it was in the official capacity of Board of Selectmen, but in a manner that they could report back to the Board of Selectmen. They, discussed the questions they had regarding how the MSBA determined the allotment, and I think it sounds like that went well, and that the answer, things made more sense afterwards, was the impression I got from what I think I read in the Herald.
Okay. Good.
So that was one issue. The other issue is just a little bit of schedule. I think that Carrie Spidell and some of the Board of Selectmen and some people from the School Building Committee are looking at adjusting the date of town meeting in order to allow for the the necessary things that need to go on the warrant regarding the new school to go on there, and go on there with the most complete amount of information for the members of the town of for people of the town of Lunenburg to make their decision. So for example, where they're at with the plan development, they're at a fairly advanced stage of the schematic design, and they're engaging a cost estimator, a professional cost estimator, who's going to try to fairly accurately determine what the cost of the proposed design for the school building will be to build it. And coming out of that, there should be a fairly solid number of what it's going to cost the town, and what the MSBA would fund and all that. So we're going to get the cost estimator is going to be engaged. The more advanced schematic design plus the work of the cost estimator will go to the MSBA. They are going to, I believe, give us more definitive information regarding what the MSBA match is relative, how much will the MSBA pay versus how much the town pay. And the idea of adjusting town meeting is to allow the residents of the town of Lunenburg, as they're making that decision, to have the benefit of all that fairly important and advanced information before making major decisions at town meeting regarding the future of the project.
So when are they looking to have town meeting? They're looking to move it to when?
Well, my understanding is that they are looking for a time ideally before mid-January. So after the new year and before mid-Jan, like within the first 2 weeks of 2.5 weeks of January. They want to keep it from getting too late in January, because if it would start to impact the overall project schedule and when they could build and open the school, and they don't want to get too far out there, but they believe that putting it to that date will allow them to get the most complete information onto the warrant.
And now the cost planner, what did you call that?
Cost estimator, yes.
Cost estimator. Is that something that comes with the MSPC? Was that something, MSBA? MSPC?
That comes, no, that's okay.
That was my dog's group.
That's I believe, a fairly standard part of the design and construction process.
Oh, okay, good.
And so that's a fairly standard step in the development of the schematic design. And I believe, I'm pretty sure that estimator is being contracted through the architects that are working for the town.
Oh, nice.
So
That's good.
So that's I think the most important recent developments.
Okay, great. Thank you for the readout. Good job. Okay, we have Building Reuse Committee, Damon.
We haven't had a full meeting of that committee since our last meeting, so.
Okay.
nothing new.
Capital Planning, Marion's not here. Old Business, okay, Planning Board Goals, Board Members Update, Assignment and Board Members. Do we have the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. So here are the typed up minutes from our last meeting.
There were 11 pages on the document that I received.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
Yeah, there were 11 pages in the document that I received. It seems you've only got the ones that were specific to you and the board.
Oh, I got two of these.
No.
Oh,
No, Matt, it looks like we each have our own. Joanna's probably holding yours right now. Does that have Matt's name on it?
Oh, I think this is only just partial.
no, she doesn't have his. She's got kind of a summary one, which is
Well,
good for her
this,
to have.
this is what I received in the distribution.
Oh, that has your name on it, Matt.
Right?
Oh, that's everyone.
Okay, yeah, this is everybody.
Right.
I'm sorry, what?
And all she distributed this time was the individual.
These aren't just copies, they're
This
one
is
for me, one for
Joanne's.
Toby, one for
Oh,
Nathan.
so we got the wrong ones.
She sent out a full package in the email,
Right.
but this is just,
Oh, we got
Specific
specific
each of
ones.
it.
So I had yours.
Do you have,
I have an overall.
She has an overall.
Oh.
do you have one for Matthew?
Oh, you know what? There was an extra. Hey, lo and behold, there's mine.
There's yours. Okay, we're good.
all right.
All right, and so then that's what she did, is broke it down, so you each have your things that you were gonna take on and be accountable for. So how does that work for everybody?
Okay.
Huh?
So first of all, I think this is nice that she put this together.
Yes.
I need to review it in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
When I did review it earlier, so I really like the format. I like that she broke it out by the things we're responsible for, put us things to make notes.
Mm-hmm.
A couple comments. One is, I think there's a couple categories that might be missing. I just want to check my notes.
Okay.
The other thing is, when we met, we talked about assigning sort of people as coordinators at a category level as well. And that's what is captured here, I think, is responsibilities for specific items, but and maybe that she didn't intend to capture it here, but like the fact that, Matt is sort of the coordinator for the agricultural area isn't captured here at that category level.
Oh, it is on mine.
It is. Oh, good.
Yeah, look, this-
you know what? I see. These are mine.
That's only yours.
Have you seen the full list?
Right.
I've got the.
She emailed you a
Yeah,
full
I did see the full. Okay, I'll check that out.
And
Yep.
then that's just what Nathan's responsible for.
Yeah. Okay, so let me add. Okay, I take it back then. Just ignore what I'm saying.
So what we'll do is we'll take these home, because I thought they looked good when I read them, but I
Yep.
can't remember everything. So we'll look at them, and then if you see something, email Marion. She can add it, and we'll finish them up on the 23rd when she's here. Am I saying the right date? I don't want to see the wrong
And
date.
it has been directed by the
23rd.
board to email Marion about those questions?
Yeah, you can email, or if you have specific questions on this document, yeah, absolutely.
Just checking.
Absolutely. All right, old business, so we did that. Thank you. Planning Director's Report, Development, Stone Farm, no report. Highfield Village, not scanned, approximately 120 pages. Okay,
That'd be a good one.
let's see if I have a thing on Highfield. I do not, so she'll have to update us on that. Mobile station. Has anybody looked at the mobile station? It's going up very quickly. And they started to put the roof, our village roof, on the flat mobile, which looks very nice.
Have we been receiving our weekly updates from them?
Yes. And I'll pass it down, that way you could see what it looks like. This is their weekly one for this week, Marion gave, so I'll pass it down just so you can all see what she gets. They're moving right along, no problems. They were pouring the cement today at the gas pumps themselves. So it's moving right along, and they're doing everything they're supposed to do so far.
Question?
Yeah.
With the hundreds of pages of stuff that we get in the distribution, would it not be reasonable to also receive copies of these, or have we received copies of these?
No, Marion usually just, that's her weekly, just to make sure that, and then she just kind of tells us.
Well, it's a board requirement, right? Why wouldn't it be available to the board members?
It is, I didn't say it wasn't available to you. I said we don't get copies of them. Marion just gives us an overall
Oh.
explanation. If you want the paper, it's a public document, you absolutely can have the paper.
There's a bunch of stuff that isn't applicable to planning, I feel, that's distributed, and I think that everything that is applicable should be distributed.
Okay, if you would like a copy of that, you can have one, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the regular weekly basis?
Yes, and that's what I'm writing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can't let it go. I was reviewing these plans, and they had a sewer line 6 inches above the water main on the plan, on the cross-section. And then they have other details that say there's a minimum of 18-inch separation,
Are you talking the mobile plan?
the mobile plan.
That's already been approved. Okay. I don't have it in front of me.
Just interestingly enough, they're installing the sewer lines, which
Huh?
I can bring it up somewhere else, I suppose.
Well, no, if you're on mobile, we're on mobile.
Okay, well, I have the plans that were submitted to, distributed. Their sewer profile, which is sheet 13 of 14, it shows 6-inch minimum between the existing water main and the proposed sewer line on the cross-section, the sewer profile. Their detail on sheet 5, note 18, specifies an 18-inch separation minimum. So I'm just curious if they're holding the 18 inches or the 6 inches. I think that's a reasonable question. We got a 1/2 foot separation between a sewer and a water line, or a 1.5 foot separation. It's industry standard to have a 1.5 foot separation. And I'm just curious if they're installing it within 6 inches of a water main.
Okay, if I may, Mrs. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead, Toby.
Matthew, I'm not sure what direction you're trying to take here. As members of the planning board, it's our responsibility to review plans, but we hire reviewing engineers. When you become a member of the board here, you may have, I don't know if you have an engineering certification and stuff, but the intent is for you to work relative to our bylaws and those types of things. We hire our reviewing engineers to make those engineering judgments for us. It shouldn't be the board member doing the engineering review, because that's what we hired the reviewing engineer to do. So I'm not sure where you're trying to go with this, because I don't think it's appropriate for any member of the board, whether you're a certified engineer, to make comments on something else that has been reviewed, because that's already been designed and reviewed by someone else. So I just think it's out of context of what we should be doing here.
Okay. Well, it's a public health issue for anybody that lives near it. I don't live near it, so I guess it's not my problem. Sorry.
Well, no, I think you're missing...
Well, I think you're missing the point, is
Right,
that...
you're missing
is
the
that
total
you're
point.
calling out something that, to me, is something that our reviewing engineer would have called out for us.
Should have.
So, well, you are questioning it in the context that to me, kind of puts that reviewing engineer at some kind of thing as not having appropriately does his job without having all the facts. So I'm a little bit concerned when we're starting to attempt to review something that has been already done by a certified engineer. You know, so I don't know, because I don't know what your credentials are, but I know that typically, even when we have lawyers on the board and things here, it is not theirs to be our counsel. They may give us a little bit of information, but they are not here to act as our counsel, nor should you, if you're a certified engineer, to act as the town's engineer in this scenario.
Okay.
Okay.
And what I would, to piggyback on Toby, we first get the plan submitted by a certified engineer. And they submit that plan to us, we review it, and then it goes out to peer review, and we hire a peer certified engineer that works on behalf of the town of Lunenburg to make sure those things that you just stated are correct. When that first engineer comes with that plan, see, you haven't had that yet, these are all plans that have already been approved. So when that engineer, Anthony from Whitnam and Bingham, is here giving us a plan, that's when you can say, Anthony, and you're asking that engineer, is it 18 inches or is it 6 inches? And Anthony is able to answer. Mary and myself told Nathan we're not able to answer that question, but Anthony would be able to answer that question.
I certainly don't mean to be overstepping any bounds, but I don't believe that it makes much difference who notices what if it's an issue and when.
Well, no, but you're asking questions of people that aren't certified to answer that question.
I simply was making a comment that it was there, and I've made this comment a couple of times already. And it was on the agenda, so I apologize for having brought it up.
Okay. Nathan?
Yeah, so I have a question.
Yes.
And then maybe some comments. The question is, so the plans that Matthew's looking at there, are they plans that, are those sheets you're looking at things that we've actually had actually approved and signed? Or I only remember signing a site plan
It was site plan review.
But yeah, I only remember, doing the site plan. I don't remember signing construction details for
I don't think
that
we're
level of
required to.
infrastructure. So the stuff he's looking at, we approved the site plan, and then were those even coming to plan, those plans, I mean, is it even up to planning to review those, or is that just going through the office of the building officer? You know what I mean? Like, who's responsible for, accepting those plans with the construction details for it?
Specifically, who's responsible for that, I don't know. I don't know, it would be like the building and the official and stuff would be responsible for all the building codes and those types of things. Who is actually responsible for making sure that those separations are there? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be the building official, because we weren't asked to sign off on anything that level of detail. And after us, who is there? There's the building official and whatever. So I guess, I mean, on the issue of bringing these things up, I guess I kind of feel like, just like when Tom was here as a lawyer, I think I appreciate, it's not a question of second guessing and saying that our reviewing engineers aren't doing a good job, because I think we've been, in general, very well served by our reviewing engineers. But, when we have some expertise, whether someone's fully certified or not, I'm not saying we're sitting here and based on the evidence presented now, we're like going to second guess or even go into a big thing. But, I appreciate the fact that he's had the time to look at these things. And if he wants to, ask some questions of the building official and or the reviewing engineer and, find out what the thought process was, there's a great chance it's something explicable, and they'll say, oh, okay, well, here's, we complied through this. There's this one section where there's a special condition, and this is a pretty common exception to make, and whatever. But I guess I'd be, we got people pulling in some different, experiences and expertises on this board, whether it's, civil engineering or architecture or business or community relations or whatnot. And, I don't want to swing into action on, little bits of information, but I also don't, the town, our reviewing engineers aren't town employees, and there is, they do a great job, but we have limited amounts of oversight and ability to review the work of the people we contract. And I personally wouldn't want to deter people who had the ability to evaluate the work of people doing work for the town, and as long as it's done in an appropriate and polite way,
I agree with you, Nathan, and that was what I was trying to say. So if it came out differently, I apologize. What I was saying is, when the peer review engineer is here, when the engineer that submitted the plan is here, that's the person you have to ask those questions to. Just like they ask you, they stand here in front of you with the plan, and they have this, and that's where Matthew can ask 100 questions. That's the forum to ask those questions. To sit and say on approved plans that we've already approved months ago, and to say these plans are all wrong, and leave it at that, isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm saying. I just want Matthew to understand, we want his knowledge. I want him, when Anthony's here submitting a plan, is it 18 inches or is it 6? But we're not out on the site watching Mike Savageau is, the peer review engineer is, all those facets of people that look at the plans. The fire department's out there, the police chief's out there. So that's when we do this whole peer review, all those people, the Board of Health, Conservation, are all involved to make sure each one of those pieces of pie that make the whole puzzle fit together.
Right.
So if it came out that I don't want Matthew asking questions, I apologize, Matthew, because that's not at all what I was saying. I was saying the people you direct them to, you just happen to be looking at all plans that have already been approved.
And I could.
Right. So as new plans come in, that's when you'll be able to get into that detail that we didn't know about.
Right. Well, in this case, I'm not sure, like, the plans of this level of detail were even before. They may have been developed after we sort of, as a planning board, more or less exited the active process.
Could have been.
I'm not sure, but, so, yeah, the opportunity may have been there, or it may not have been there at that point.
Oh, no, it's always there to ask questions.
Well, sure, but, I mean, if they didn't do the details about how they're gonna run the water and sewer pipes before we approved the site plan, I don't know if those details were required as part of that stage of the approval, or if they were later in the process.
I think it's my understanding we can't approve a plan without sewer, right?
Without construction detail for,
I don't know if construction, but that it goes to the sewer department and feedback on that.
Yeah, well, every department has their roles and responsibilities, right? Ours, from my perspective, is for planning, okay? And through part of the planning process is that we have reviewing engineers that work on our behalf.
Yep.
You know, so we, to a certain degree, I think, are relying upon their expertise in doing that. And while I acknowledge that if Matthew has valid questions at that point in time, but ours is not to go back and re-engineer something for which we've hired somebody, in my opinion. Ours is to plan, okay?
yeah, that's our primary
Okay,
responsibility.
that's our responsibility. We are the planning board. We are looking to make sure that we have the appropriate planning tools in place to help the town grow through zoning and those types of things, you know? So other people come in and do the reviewing and the engineering piece for us. That's not our level of expertise, and we hire that stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Can I have that back? The mobile?
Yes.
I'll have her scan, because that's her copy, so I don't want to, and I'll make sure I put a note to have her scan it to you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Emerald Place. They're coming, just a reminder, at 6:45 on September 23rd, to kind of have that conversation about how do we get out of, what's the goal of getting out of the lease into sales. Tri-Town, oh, go ahead.
Is that the expectation that has been set with them?
Yes.
Okay.
I know Marion had emailed them requesting that information for the September 23rd meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Toby, you brought up Tri-Town Landing, Youngs Road, weekly update, formula for the 40S qualification, website URL located at the back of the black box agenda. That's the website you can go to get the criteria.
For the 40S.
For the 40S, and what the state uses for the 40S.
Gotcha.
Lunenburg Village. Their public hearing, notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals will be holding a public hearing on September 25th at the Lunenburg Town Hall, Joseph F. Bellotta Meeting Room. Gary Lorden, so that's the, I believe the applicant is seeking to modify number of units, 80 units, which will increase by 16. So that public hearing is September 25th, if anybody wanted to attend.
Do you know if Marion happened, because I didn't see that in the packet, if she had forwarded that in the packet? I don't recall seeing that.
The 40S?
Yeah, the 40S stuff.
I don't recall.
Could you ask her to send it? 'Cause
I will.
I won't remember that long URL by the time I get
I will.
home.
Well, and I'll ask that they pull it up and forward us the guideline, instead of 5 of us going onto the URL and trying to find it. All right, we're cruising.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I attended the last ZBA meeting because I brought it up at the last planning board meeting that I thought that Lunenburg Village was not an appropriate name for that
yes.
and I didn't, and I'm glad I did because I don't believe in any action taken by the planning board. I brought that up at the hearing. There is considerable, it's not just a 16-unit increase, it's the Lunenburg Village was two portions on either side of a wetland. They've increased the units on one side by 15 units, and the other side, they've only modified it by 2.
Okay.
So it's considerable. It's not, I don't know where ZB is going to go with it, but it's not a simple thing, and I really don't think that was appropriate for there, but that's not my place to say, I suppose.
Okay. And did you have any public comment on the Lunenburg Village name, and what did
I
they
did.
say?
They didn't say anything when I was at the podium, but on the way out, I was approached by one of the ZBA members and thanking me for bringing that to light.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
See? Wonderful. All right. White Woods, no report. The citizen survey, okay, action file, citizen survey, there was no update. Accounts won't be active until payment is received. The IT director will inform Marion as soon as the account is up and running. So they're waiting just for that.
Excuse me, where are you?
Yeah.
I'm on action files. Where are you?
I was on, we still had White Woods no report, marijuana clinic, she had an area status.
She did?
Well, it says area status, and I don't know what what we were talking to as far as Chapter 40, Section 10. Or is that still in reference to the medical marijuana piece? I'm not sure what this means on the agenda.
This was stuff she scanned to us, correct? Oops, sorry. Marion scanned this to us.
Yes, that was in the packet.
So did you have any questions on it?
No, well, you just skipped over it, so I didn't know.
Oh, because she had on my thing that there was no new.
Oh, okay.
Info,
All it says area status, so I didn't,
No.
okay.
I have a comment on the medical marijuana.
Please share.
The federal government, the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Deputy Attorney General had released a 3-page memo on August 29th of 2013, basically recognizing states' rights in regulation, and is kind of alleviating the problem that I have repeatedly brought up about the state regulating something that's federally illegal. So we actually have recognition from the federal government of our rights to do so. I'm much more comfortable now.
Wonderful. I'm glad. And I'm glad that they're all on the same page, so they're not fighting amongst each other.
Yep. If anybody wants to follow up on that, it's a memorandum, the subject, guidance regarding marijuana enforcement from the Office of Deputy Attorney General, dated August 29th, 2013.
And I think there was something in the newspaper, I still have my pile of newspapers that I'm trying to go through after being gone for 10 days. But I would just kind of scan through the headlines, and Lancaster is doing the same thing, putting a moratorium. Yeah, the town of Lancaster is doing the same thing.
Good.
So. Okay, next we had Chapter 40, 10, which is...
That's something I brought up.
Oh, this was something you brought up about the population, so you all got that, which is, a town having a population of not less than 10,000 may provide and maintain one more public markets with suitable buildings and grounds, and for this purpose may acquire land by gift or purchase or lessee the same, with or without buildings, and may make alterations in buildings and construction new building on land to acquire for lease. So walk me through this, Matthew, and what was the thought process behind?
Well, the thought process was that a public market my thought was for the Agricultural Commission.
Yeah.
And Section 10 goes further on to saying about lands for farmer's market, which is kind of different from their initial verbiage in that section. But I think it's something that we should look into. And in fact, it's definitely something that the Agricultural Commission is going to be looking into.
And-
Something that I've already spoken with the town manager about.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think it's a very good opportunity. I also mentioned a couple other things that weren't on here. I think it was Chapter 48 was the data processing, Municipal Data Processing Center, and a mapping commission. I'm pretty sure I brought both of those up at the last meeting as well, which are also things that I brought up with the town manager.
Okay. And you brought them up here as well?
I believe I
At the planning
did.
board, or with just?
I believe the
Okay.
last meeting I brought them up with this 40, Section 10.
Okay, Lunenburg Hazard Mitigation Plan update. So this is between Marion and Pat, Chief Sullivan.
No, this is something else I brought up last meeting.
Okay, go ahead.
On the second to last page labeled 84, Lunenburg Protection Matrix.
Yes.
The very first thing, stormwater management standards, description, area covered, effective and/or enforcement improvements or changes needed. The last column specifies the planning board is reviewing zoning bylaws and regulations to determine the best way to accomplish all flood-related hazards mitigations. I asked about that last meeting because I had not heard anything about it. Marion said that she had included it in the distribution so that we would see that. I still don't recall any discussion about it. I'm kind of in the dark about what it is, but it's a mitigation planning team.
Yeah, that evidently Chief Sullivan's on, and they've not had a meeting since, looking at the emails going back and forth, since September 24th, 2012. So Marion was looking for setting up, Mr. Smith had been doing the minutes of those meetings. He's gone on to greener pastures. I emailed the assessor and have not heard back. Stay tuned for further details. I suspect we'll be calling to have another meeting soon, Sully. So she must be trying to get a meeting.
I'm looking here at something we received in the distribution dated Tuesday, June 25, 2013, meeting number 2.
This was August 27th, 2013. So we will have to check on that one with Marion. All right, I will check with Marion on that one and have her read out more accurately on the 23rd. She could probably do it better than I can, because I'm just reading what her and Chief Sullivan were going back and forth on. Town-owned land, she has here, it was an action file.
That's just a duplicate distribution that we received a few weeks
Right,
ago.
we received that, and I thought it was very funny, just for my own sharing. It says on here for town land, I just want to share this with Selectman Bertram, that I noticed Shirley Reservoirs under here is 350 acres is owned by the town of Lunenburg, under our town land map. That was quite shocking to me, because I know we had numerous conversations with Copeland and Page trying to see who owned Lake Shirley, and 398 acres is owned by the town of Lunenburg on the town-owned land map. All right, then we also had a fee schedule.
It's all wetland, though. We can't do much with it.
Yeah. Thank goodness. All right, planning board fee schedule. Shirley? Did you see these? You want me to read each town out loud on TV? Because we've got Shirley, Harvard.
Those are the only two that we're missing?
Okay, so for Shirley, low-impact subdivisions, what was the one we were questioning, Matthew? It was if they resubmit, no, if they make a change.
Oh, it was for extensions, was it not?
Right, yep. Modification extensions, Harvard,
To clarify?
notification extension is half of the original plan. And let me see if it says what the original plan is. Special permit driveway, inspection approval, wireless communication, consulting review fee, site plan review with special permit. Site review plan is $500. So they charge $500 for a site review plan in Harvard, and then if you do a modification extension, they charge a half of $250. So it will be, I'm assuming, half of the 500.
So those are two different towns though, aren't they?
Harvard?
Her initial 8-8 response was that Harvard was half the original cost for a submittal of special permit and definitive plans.
Yeah.
And then for Shirley, it was 2-year extension granted by written request, fee same as original submittal
Okay, right now on Harvard,
on Harvard. Yep.
a site plan review is $500. A modification or an extension of that is half of the original plan, which was $500. Then they go down to subdivision plans. A preliminary is $500 plus 100 lot plus 1 linear foot of road. Definitive is $2,000 plus $2 linear foot of road. Modification to any of those is $250 plus $1 linear foot of road.
Yeah. I like Harvard's.
Yeah, well, here, let me.
No, I have it. I have
Oh,
it.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's Harvard's. And then Shirley is 100, subsequent additional preliminary review, application
Same as
fee
original
structure allowed to limit 10,000. Extension modification for permits, $250.
Actually, I like Shirley's too.
So did that answer?
Yes, I believe it did.
Good. That's done. MRPC is coming to present to us on September 23rd. Then we had rules and regulations, subdivision of land. We got those in our packets. And then we had I'm looking for notices and I don't see them. All right. That's all I had. Our next meeting schedule is September 23rd at the Ritter. October 14th is a holiday. So that is our meeting night. So we have to, and we can decide on the 23rd if we want to meet that Monday. We can't meet that Monday. Meet the next Monday or only have one meeting in October. So we can decide that, think about that over the next 2 weeks. And then October 28th will be at the Ritter Building. Members' issues. Does anybody have, let's start.
I do. The Agricultural Commission, a couple of things I forgot to mention, or I didn't mention last meeting. They were curious as to how a 4-H is developed in a town and how they can do it, or if it's appropriate for them. And interestingly enough, I was looking through the 2011 elected officials, as was in the 2011 town report on the website. And I believe it was Miss, right down the street, my neighbor, Ruth Anderson was 4-H representative or something. Anyways, they were asking about the 4-H. They wanted to
Expand it, get it going.
revive it.
Nice. So are they going to contact Ruth, or do you have that for next meeting to tell them?
I wanted to bring that up. I'm still in limbo as far as my position with them and with this board. My understanding from their chair was that Marion had told him that I was there to observe and not to partake in the communications or something. I'm not quite sure. It didn't sound very correct.
I don't know. That's the first I'm hearing of that. I don't know.
We
Okay.
talking about the agricultural committee?
Yeah. I thought you were the liaison.
The liaison, but is the liaison supposed to sit there and not say anything? Not supposed to partake in the communication?
No, I don't think so. I don't know how that chair runs his meetings.
Okay, well, that was his understanding from the planning director.
Okay,
And
no,
I'm not
'cause
sure that...
I know Mrs. Bertram is our liaison, and I communicate with her throughout the meetings quite frequently. If I have a question, if she has input, I always identify her and ask her to come to the mic and share her thought.
Right,
Instead of seeing a struggle on something that she knows the answer to, by all means, I would hope
sure. Well,
that.
no,
Any idea or
again,
suggestion?
they're new. They've had like 3 meetings total. They're not politicians, they're farmers.
Exactly.
They have no idea, and I'm new, I have no idea. Anyways, that was just a comment on the Agricultural Commission. And also, they wanted to know about they questioned the reuse committee for location of potential Grange Hall at Old Primary. So that would be Damon.
That primary? As far as that building goes, it's just not a focus of our committee. Marion seemed to direct us that was, well, it was going for HUD funding for housing over there, senior housing.
Right.
And she seemed to say that wasn't going so well, so they might be looking at doing a friendly 40B or something over there, but it's not something that the town's looking at doing, or working on.
Okay. Yeah, because the last I knew is we were working with the state to make that a residential
Yeah.
living.
Well, it's no longer in the schools, as they said last meeting, right? We inquired about it, and they said that they had released that from the school building.
Yeah, I believe it's back with the town. It's back with the town of Lunenburg.
Yeah, but I believe we're trying to get it in the public sector, or the private sector, I mean, and not on town hands anymore, was my understanding of that building's future.
It's right in the center of town, though. I mean,
That, I can't give you
Okay,
one for it.
yeah.
Doesn't before me, so.
sure.
But that, as far as our committee goes, that's not
One of the buildings.
one of the
you're
buildings that
looking
we're focusing on.
Okay.
The
So-
Passio school, that could be brought up, yes, but not the
That's a
primary.
little big for Grange Hall.
Part of it potentially, or.
at. And Nathan's trying to say something. Go ahead.
That's okay. I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
No, I just got a comment about a couple of those things. I mean, I don't know, just first of all, back to the agricultural committee and Matthew's role. I mean, I think my impression, just having seen how different people liaise with different committees, a lot of it has to do with the charter of the committee itself. So like the school building committee, I'm like an active voting member because when it was formed, their charter was to get representation from X boards, whatever. You know, the Board of Selectmen member, it's Paula now. I don't remember who it was before Paula. Maybe it's always been Paula. But
It has been.
and she's obviously been, you know, great to have, but she doesn't, I don't know if it has to do with our charter or whatnot, but she doesn't participate in the planning board meetings like the way, when I go to the school building committee meetings, I'm like more like very similar to what I am when I come to the planning board
You're a
meeting.
member.
Exactly.
You're a member.
Exactly.
He's not a member.
He's currently not a member.
Right.
And
And I don't know in their charter if they have a planning board member being, because the Board of Selectmen appointed the Agricultural Commission, and I don't believe that, and that's something in time their charter might create, but I don't believe their charter has a representative from planning board.
do they have a charter right
Well,
now?
I think there's a state charter that they follow, that,
Okay.
yes, I don't think they've sat and created a charter, but I believe there's a state, which is what we adopted.
But Matthew, you're there in pretty much the same capacity that Mrs. Bertram is here. She's here to answer any questions we might have, relay thoughts to the Board of Selectmen as you would relay their thoughts to us. You're not an active member in this discussion and voting member, but
He's not a voting
you're
member.
more of a resource to them than an active part of their meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, and I think Paula does this as well. I think there's the transmission from from being a resource to the board, but I think there's also, I don't know, I mean, maybe I misunderstand the intent of the representation, but sort of be a conduit of information so that, you know, if there's areas that there's of common concern or common focus for the ag board and the planning board, it's great to have Matthew there so that he can be a conduit that we can use to communicate with the ag board and vice versa. Like he reports to us a lot of the stuff they're interested in. So I guess, I mean, if he's being told not to participate actively, that would defeat the purpose of that role of, you know, being a conduit for two-way communication. So, you know, I hope that gets resolved in a way where he's, even if he's not a voting member, that he can, you know, participate adequately in the discussion, because I think the relationship between these two boards is a pretty important one.
Well, I do too, and Paula's going to come up. But that's what, like, I think Paula, as I said, is here as a liaison to partner with the Board of Selectmen, so they're understanding what we're doing, working together, and that Matthew plays that same role. But come up, Paula, please.
I just want to speak relative to my role as the liaison. When the selectmen expanded the liaisons, and it was done a couple of years ago, we didn't previously have a liaison to the planning board, a liaison to the Board of Health. We saw it as a way to increase communication between the boards, but also for the Board of Selectmen to understand what's going on through the entire town, because it's very difficult to understand when you're attending so many meetings for whatever role you're fulfilling within that board. But I'm certainly not an active participant in the planning board process, because that's a completely separate entity from the Board of Selectmen. You are elected officials, you have your own charter, you have your own rules. Certainly I'm here to answer questions that you may have, but it is not my role to participate in the discussion. Unless you request me to. But the way that I've interpreted it, and I know that some of our other members, it's not to be an active participant in your discussion. That is not the role of a liaison that we have taken. It is a resource and a way for the Board of Selectmen to be aware of what's happening around the town. Now, as to the role of the planning board member on the Agricultural Commission, I honestly don't know, and that's something you'd have to look. But unlike Mr. Lockwood's position on the school building committee, you are a voting member, so obviously you are an active participant in that process.
Just like when I was on the DPW building committee, I was an active member and voted on what was going to happen to the building, what engineering we were going with.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
I mean, my role is really to be able to share with the other board members what's happening in the planning board, so we're aware what's going on within the town, all across all of the boards.
Thanks for clarifying, yeah.
Thank you.
So, and through, Matthew going to the meetings and being a liaison, maybe down the road, it'll call for a position, one of the seats being a planning board member, but again, it's their first year. Their charter's just going, they're just growing, learning on what their role's going to be. But I know when they came in front of us, part of the question is the right to farm bylaw would be coming next. So that was why we thought, it would be good to have a planning board member there to help with the process, because they all come through us.
Gotcha.
Those bylaws. So that was part of it as well.
And back to your question about building reuse, what kind of requirements were they looking for in there? You said Grange Hall, is that what you?
They were curious. They, like I said, that they're very new, they don't know what's what, as far as political, and they were looking for a location of a market.
I can certainly put it on the list. Do you have any square footage requirements or kind of needs?
I
that
can
go with
ask,
that?
I certainly will ask. Square footage, location.
Basic needs of,
Basic needs, sure.
Okay, any
so-
other?
Oh, sorry, yeah, one more. Let's go.
Okay. Matthew, any other members' issues for you?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Hey, Toby?
So, I'm sorry, just a comment
Oh,
on.
on Matthew?
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, just on this reuse thing, so I understand from, thanks for shedding light on that, school building, sorry, building reuse committee's got the primary school off the radar. So building reuse committee, are they primarily chartered by Board of Selectmen?
it was created by the Board of Selectmen.
Created by the Board of Selectmen, okay. And the Board of Selectmen have instructed them to keep that building off the radar?
If not keep it off the radar, it was never put on our radar, so it's not like it's off limits, but it was never put in our,
Because what are your
Scope.
buildings? TC Passio, the Eagle House?
yeah, TC
Teen
Passio's.
Center?
No, not the
No.
Teen Center. Eagle House, this
Ritter.
building, Ritter,
Ritter, that was it.
Brooks
Sorry.
House were the ones that we were specifically instructed to look at.
Because their thought process, I believe, and I don't want to speak for Damon, is that all those were going to move into TC Passio. And then what would we do with the buildings here if all those groupings moved into TC Passio? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the only reason that these buildings were being talked about.
Right.
But coincidentally, we haven't seen too much enthusiasm from people moving offices down there, but, so we're looking at all the options, so just being thorough, but
And so the primary school probably wasn't on there because we had the federal housing program going there, and it's already been evacuated. This was on buildings that are currently
gotcha.
being used that might now become,
So it's kind of on the focus of this particular operational question of how to reconfigure in the wake of the,
yeah, the Passios building was the focus and
Yep.
what happens when that's empty.
gotcha.
These buildings are only more of a domino effect, not really the main focus either.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, so I understand, that makes sense. I mean, I hope that when we do the town center planning, I mean, I personally am not thrilled with, I mean, the primary building is gonna, it has a big impact on the center, its use or non-use. And so I hope that when we get a center plan that can, we can, go through the process with the town, understand what the town wants, understand what we recommend to the town based on what we hear from the town and all that, that can become a subject of discussion and move forward in some direction, because that's been in limbo for longer than I've been a member of the planning board. So.
longer than I've been a member of the planning board.
Okay.
Okay. Damon, any members' issues?
Well, just a side note, I've been trying to compile information on all our town buildings because we don't have a central location for all those documents. And currently I'm missing some of those documents right now. Some of the sets Marion actually has some original plans for the primary school from 1926. But it would appear that the elevations of the building and some other drawings that may look good hanging on the wall were taken from the set and hanging on someone's wall in town. And I was actually met with Jim Larkin today of the Historic Society, and he has some really nice buildings of the Ritter building from 09, 08, and 09. But again, those are just kind of on trace paper. The real blueprint set is missing. There was some blueprint, but again, the more attractive images probably on someone's wall in town. So if anyone knows where they are, I'm not trying to take them from you, I just want to scan them in,
We'll
yes,
give
so
them
the
my
town
shot.
has them as a document. But any old blueprint drawings of town buildings that may be hiding would be greatly appreciated if we could be directed as to where they are.
Okay, and they will get it back.
I have comment on that. Have you looked at the road book that's in the safe? I did
I
find
haven't
it.
made it that far.
Okay, there's a very big book on top of a shelf that has a lot of very old plans. I think it's got Tri-Town's original design, and it's got a lot of other
Okay,
30s and 40s plans.
great.
Thank you. Nathan, members' issues.
Just one member's issue. One of the things we're doing is reviewing some of the subdivision regulations and,
Yes.
and bylaws. And one of the ones I came across recently had to do with the related to subdivisions, and it was some what's the right word? Rules about what could and couldn't be done by people who had submitted subdivision plans that had not been approved. And on review of these guidelines, they currently lack any enforcement or penalty. And were that to become an issue, the town wouldn't have a lot of recourse if someone decided they wanted to violate those rules that were laid out there in the subdivision rules and regulations. So I would like in a upcoming meeting to discuss the possibility of simply augmenting the existing rules and regulations with an appropriate enforcement or measures or penalties, and that, perhaps, we can discuss at that meeting how to go about doing that. Do we engage?
And what I'll do is I'll have Marion put that as an action item on the 9/23 meeting.
That sounds
And then we
great.
can talk about that. And I'll also email her, and if there are any other towns that have such penalty fees, if she could bring them to that meeting to kind of just start conversation, like we just did with the Harvard fees and the Shirley fees, to see and kind of see what they have for verbiage on a rule and regulation, fining, penalizing for not following the rules.
Sounds great.
Perfect. All right. I do not have any members' issues. I think you're all fantastic, and I love what we're doing every day. Okay. Board comments? Any board comments? All right. Planning
have none.
director comment. She's not here. Public comment? Come on up.
Hi, just a couple of things that I wanted to comment on. The primary building, I heard some talk about what's happening with that. The developer, John Jewell, had partnered with RCAP Solutions, and they came into the Board of Selectmen, I don't recall when, but several months ago, to give us kind of an update and an overview of where they are. They're looking in an over 55 community, looking for funding. We haven't received the funding. They did come to the Board of Selectmen, and they're looking for some concessions on the town side to make it more attractive for state funding. We are still looking at that and waiting for some more information as to the value of the building and getting more information, but we will be following up. So although nothing has happened, it is still something that we're looking at and hope will eventually come to fruition. But it's something that's being evaluated actively. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I did mention it at last Tuesday's meeting, and this is my comment as an individual, not necessarily from the board. I had mentioned at the last meeting the Lane property, which is actively being marketed right now, and I know the planning director had reported that there was no action needed. I just kind of wanted to let you know what we're looking to do or hoping to do moving forward with all chapter land. And Brandon Kibbe from the Open Space Committee had come in and talked with us. They're looking at kind of developing a criteria by which to evaluate chapter land, so that if and when it does become available, there's criteria to determine whether or not it makes sense for the town to look at acquiring it, not looking at it parcel by parcel, but developing an overview of a criteria. And obviously, the planning board's going to need to be part of that criteria, because you're one of the boards that we come to on a regular basis to look for feedback from. What we want to avoid is in the future that a piece of property becomes available and we have to act within 30 days. Obviously, to get a town meeting and to get all the opinion from all of the boards, that's very difficult to do in that kind of time constraint. So the goal is to have as I said, a criteria developed by which to determine whether or not it makes sense to look at purchasing this property or taking some type of action. We are looking to be proactive on the Lane property. This is actually one of the selectmen's goals that we have come up with, is working with the Open Space Committee and the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission to develop that criteria. But the Lane property is actively being marketed. It is going to, we were hoping to be proactive and get some feedback from planning and conservation and open space on that particular parcel. And there's actually 2 parcels. So I know the Open Space and the Conservation Commission are very active. I actually received an email from Jan Carrier of the Conservation Commission within the last couple of days that they are actively looking at that. But I just think from a planning perspective, there is a commercial component to this property, and from a planning perspective, I just want to make sure you guys are involved in that process if it's appropriate to be so. So if you could just possibly even check with Open Space and see where they are. But I did mention this at the Board of Selectmen meeting, so I don't want you guys to be out of that mix, because I do know that they're actively looking at it. And there's actually an open space meeting at 6 p.m. on Wednesday to talk about this. So I wanted you to be aware of that. The other thing is the Lake Shirley. I just wanted to let you know I am going to follow up on that. I do know that when the town took ownership of the dam, public access had to be part of in order to get the funding for the dam repairs. Sometimes what I've heard is that if its owner's unknown and it goes that way for an indefinite period of time, then eventually it will become under the town of Lunenburg. But I will follow up with the assessor's office because, as you know, we looked at that when the whole dam questions came up. So I will look at that and follow it up with it.
And that was the whole theory, is that nobody had paid taxes on it in so long that it automatically became town land. Because I thought at first it was Matthew and I had a conversation, I thought it was the boat ramp.
Right.
And then next to the acreage, it was 398.
Right.
It wasn't the boat ramp.
And I know there are several parcels in town that after not being paid taxes for so long.
It automatically becomes.
So I will follow up on that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Do I have to go up there? I'm sorry.
No.
One more thing from the 2011 town report.
Yes.
I honestly don't remember what page or where it was from, but it was a listing of different things that were purchased for the schools. And one of the things was 40 iPads and 2 mobile carts were purchased for Turkey Hill Middle School in 2011. 40 iPads. Those are basically the tablets that I was talking about that would be nice for board members. The school really only uses them up till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Isn't that true?
I don't know if it's the teachers that take them home and communicate. I don't know what the school uses.
It was a town purchase, and I don't see any reason we couldn't share those. I just wanted to point it out that they are owned by the town. Something that we were told we couldn't have.
Can I ask you a question? Kelly Service Station. What is the status of that? Is it Kelly's?
You mean on here, on
Yes.
125 Mouse Ave?
I knew it as Kelly's.
There is a legal owner. The question is, if we auction the property, what responsibility we assume under the 21E. That's the issue, is it's a known contaminated site. The question that I've had, and I'm still awaiting the report from the town manager, is I'd like to see the preliminary report that was done on the property. But obviously the concern has been that once we take ownership and go through that tax title process, what liability do we assume at that point? And that's the concern that the town has, the Board of Selectmen has. And we've been trying to work through with town council on.
Right, because I'll have to look, because I thought there was, if a municipality took it over to try to revamp the property, that there were grants and DEP programs that helped take out that contamination to no burden to the municipality.
But as with any grant, I don't think that just because we acquire the property that we automatically get funding for that grant. Typically a grant is a competitive process. And the concern is that if we acquire the property and go through that process and become the legal owners of that property, what liability have we then assumed? Now, there's some ambiguity as to exactly what happens, is if we don't do any improvements on the property and then resell it, that our liability may be limited. But that's something that the town manager was looking at with town council. Yes, there is state funding available, yes, but again, it's a competitive process. It's not a given that you will receive funding to be able to clean it up.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Toby, are you thinking, or
I'm thinking, but that's
Okay.
okay.
can I move on, or do you want me to
You
give you a
can, you
moment?
can move right on.
Well, because that's it. So we're going to adjourn unless you would like a moment.
No, that's good.
Okay. I would make a motion. I would accept a motion to adjourn, not to return this evening.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you all. Great meeting. Thank you for contributing and participating.